It's that time on Monday morning, 10:30, where Dr. Renee Ostertag has her 25th YouTube Live with a fabulous guest, folks. Amelia Norfleet Dorn.
Hello, everyone.
Quick sound check for those of you that are here tuning in. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Can you see us?
Please let us know.
We like that kind of feedback around here. It was fabulous once I did a YouTube Live and spoke for like 6 and not a soul could hear me. And I had such good content.
Oh, that's tough. As my 13-year-old would say, that's tough.
That's tough.
Oh, man.
All right, let's get some thumbs up. Yay, Brian Marzak.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
You're very kind.
It's
We
true.
appreciate you.
Yes, we do. All right, folks. Amelia Norfleet Dorn, Dr. Renee Ostertag, chuming in from Denver, Colorado. I made up that word, Amelia. Chuming.
I like it.
Yeah, because it's like we're chiming in
Mhm.
while tuning in.
Oh, I like it.
I think
it even more
sometimes-
now that I know what it means. What the hell you're talking about. I mean, I'm on board with like whatever you're doing because
Yeah.
I know you and I love you and I think you're great.
Yeah.
But that it actually it makes sense now.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I think sometimes good things come from mistakes.
Agreed.
Mistakes are
Mhm.
sometimes where magic can happen.
Yeah.
And chuming in was just, I was so nervous and I was inviting people to tune in. And I was like, oh, wait, what am I trying to say here?
Yeah.
So tune in, folks.
Happy
Chime
accident.
in. Happy accident. Where are you in the world? And what do I want to hear from you today? Ooh. I want to hear about something brave that you have done that you are proud of.
That's good.
That's what we want to hear about today.
Doesn't mean that you were brave and you succeeded. You could be proud of your failure, your happy accident, your mistake too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you brave? Did you try something new? It doesn't mean it turned out fantastically.
Yeah. It sounds like the bravery comes from the act, not the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's like the outcome's attached to something else.
Mm-hmm.
The act is like you and your empowerment.
That's the brave part.
That's the brave part.
Yeah.
Let me tell you who this person is. Okay. Amelia started a nonprofit here in Denver, Colorado called Impact Safety of Colorado. Impact Personal Safety. And Amelia, in my book, is a complete badass challenger, just like we spent the last 7 weeks talking about, because she trains skills for empowerment and self-defense to women, children, families,
people of all genders, ability. Yeah.
Yeah. So I met Amelia back in 2016 when we
presented
at an event that we founded called the Bitch Slap of Truth.
Yes.
And Amelia, on a stage in front of 400 people, got up and demonstrated a fight.
Yes.
And I was hooked, sold, line, and sinker. Like, that woman's a badass. I want to do that too.
Yeah.
And so I went to Amelia's training. Tell us a little bit about your training.
Sure. Yeah. So we think of self-defense in a much broader way than most people think about self-defense. So we think about violence on a spectrum. So violence comes at us in lots of different ways. Typically, we kind of think of self-defense as like it's dealing with a physical attack, but violence can occur in emotional ways, financial ways, mental abuse, microaggressions, racism, all the isms. And all of those are acts of violence too, which means then that we have to value a spectrum of strategies. So we're not just looking at hitting someone in the face, because we as humans who simultaneously are self-preserving, but also with our complex brains so driven to build community that we often don't pick alienating options like punching someone in the face. We tend to use things that are relationship preserving. So sometimes we will ignore things that are uncomfortable for us or unsafe for us. We will endure those things. Sometimes we have to, especially if we're in a vulnerable position, like we're children who are being abused. And so we use a lot of different strategies other than hitting people. We use verbal skills. We use, everything on the flight and fight spectrum, all those things, including going to therapy later and dealing with trauma later, and skills in regulating ourselves and bringing ourselves back to our green tree mind. That is definitely a very important self-defense strategy, and kind of should be part of every triggering incident. Like, it's important that you bring yourself back to like that parasympathetic place of being able to process what happened to you and heal and recover. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. And that's what we're hoping to do today, is share a little bit from the field of intense fight or flight situations.
Yep.
As you said, they can happen sneaky like or explicit. Somebody wants to steal your money, or you're vulnerable in a situation where you need community and you're not willing or able to find discomfort to meet needs because you need community. So we want to share some skills today on how to effectively get back to your green tree mind after intense fight or flight
situation. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Brian doesn't like crowds, and he took his 2 kids to the Taylor Swift concert.
You might want to do a little like self-regulation today. Like, that sounds like that might have been like a 5th gear kind of experience.
Yeah.
Of like, oh my gosh, it's a lot. And as a parent, like, I can relate also to being at one of those places of like simultaneously being so excited for your kids, but maybe also like concerned, maybe not just for their safety, but also for like, are they having a good time, or am I being cool? So there's like this level of, of we have to perform, as a parent in that moment too. You're the chaperone. So, you regulated before you went. Okay, great. How did you do getting back to sleep after coming back from that? Because that would also be a good time maybe to kind of, to find a way to calm back down. And Renee and I really were connecting recently on the fact that sometimes it's not appropriate to like, I've just had this very activating event, and so now I need to like breathe and calm and like snuggle. And sometimes we can't get there because we're still revving the engine.
Yeah, it's a good analogy that I'm hoping we can link today about how your body is a car. I grew up with an auto mechanic race car European father who taught me how to drive and pay very close attention to the gas and clutch mechanism. And I think about the body like a car, and it has different gears. And your body is a car going through this environment of life with ever-changing contexts that require different gears and speeds from your car, right? So Brian went to an environment with 68,000 screaming adolescents, right? So that environment might need 5th gear or 3rd gear or 2nd gear. It depends on a whole bunch of factors.
Yeah.
And then you can't get to sleep. And how do you drive the car in the ever-changing contexts of life? By the way, more people are coming in. What's something brave you did that you are proud of? That's what we're gathering data on.
Yeah. Well, and Renee, I also, I didn't grow up with like a race car dad or whatever, but I had parents who really wanted me to be safe on the road. And so they also taught me how to drive, stick shift. And growing up in Colorado, learning how to drive in the snowy conditions and icy conditions. And sometimes it's counterintuitive that like when you're driving on ice, you want to be going as fast as possible in the lowest gear possible, right? So you might have been at the concert, or you might be somewhere where you're activated. And instead of like letting yourself get super amped up, you might need to control a little bit of that and to bring yourself like more to a level of being able to be more aware, because you're in a situation where you need to be more aware. And it's harder for us to be aware the more adrenaline we let flood into our bodies. And I say sometimes we, it's very hard for us to control the amount of adrenaline, especially if we're having a trauma response. It's not necessarily something that I can be like, no, thank you. Please lower the adrenaline. No, we can't, always do that in the moment.
What's coming up for me is the default mode network of somebody's nervous system
Mm-hmm.
and how that relates to the patterns that we might subconsciously adopt when we get into the car. I think about
Mm-hmm.
my nervous system before and after your training.
Yeah.
And I think anytime before your training, I'm around people, my nervous system default mode is like, I got to go vigilant, third, fourth gear at least, because people are around and people have hurt me. And so I'm coming into an environment that might need first or second gear, but my automatic default mode network is like set to fourth gear.
Yeah. Well, and by what? Maybe could be trauma or past experience, could be, socialization that's built paranoia or bias around certain types of people or certain places. Like I think of as a white woman, like how much I was taught to fear like parking lots and unhoused people, and how I've never had any kind of conflict in a parking lot. And or maybe like other than maybe the Whole Foods in Cherry Creek, which I'm not gonna lie, like that is a stressful parking lot, but never been like assaulted there, right? And unhoused people have like, maybe I've been yelled at one or two times, but they've never laid their hands on me. And the places where I have been unsafe have been like on dates with people who are supposed to be safe and like in public places and those kinds of things, or in my own house, right? And so sometimes we're coming in and we're like, I need to be at a 5 because I'm in a parking garage. And it's like, actually, you could totally be a 1 in the parking garage. And if something were to happen, you being a 1 would serve you better than being a 5, because in the 5, you're looking around and you might be identifying someone in a hoodie because that's what you were taught to like target in on. Now you've got tunnel vision. And then meanwhile, somebody who doesn't look like who you were taught to fear, who's statistically more likely to be someone who would attack you, maybe not in a hoodie, is actually coming up, and you can't actually take care of anyone attacking you until anyone is attacking you. So it's also good to like be in first gear so that then you have room to move if something happens.
What do you say to people that are concerned about first gear? Because I need to be ready.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one because it's like the best way for you to be aware and like effective in your awareness is to be a 1. So like if you're hiking in the mountains and you just saw some YouTube TikTok video about mountain lions, and so you're like looking for mountain lion tracks and you're like looking down the whole time and really worried about that, and you don't notice the storm rolling in, and now you're stuck on the top of the mountain and you get struck by lightning, like oops, you missed the other thing. So being at a 1 means I'm taking in information from everywhere because I'm nice and relaxed, right? And so our society, like it's our need to feel safe, right? That we cling to these sort of superstitions about, if I rotate my head around while I'm walking in the parking garage, I'll be fine. Or if I pay attention in this situation, if I look for these people. And I understand the temptation of that because, especially as a parent, like I want to be able to tell my kids, this is what causes harm, A, B, C, and this is what you need to look for. But it's not how life works. Like it can come at you from odd places. So yeah, being a 1, but that's so much easier said than done, right? Especially if we have trauma. If we have trauma, it's very hard, to push out of those pieces and like be present to what's going on in that moment if it's similar.
What you're bringing up for me is 2 things, 3 things. Number 1, it's hard to trust the relaxed stillness, the like stillness and relaxed alertness. Number 1, that's hard to do.
As we age, I will tell you, kids are brilliantly tied to their intuition, unapologetically connected with, I don't like you, I like you, I want to leave, I don't want to leave, this feels good, this doesn't. Yeah.
So kids trust their bodies
and those
signals from the bodies to be accurate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Less and less as they get older. Yep.
Yeah, because we have these experiences that teach us, and then we sort of,
and people that tell us, and the TV we watch, and the whatever that tells us that we need to worry about certain things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also heard it's it's complicated, right? There's a lot of factors going on for us to be aware of, especially as we get older and have more priming to be in a higher gear, because we want to be aware of our body. 1 to 5, where are we? Because a 1 actually is more effective to deal with whatever comes up. And we need to be aware of the environment, right? Because if I'm looking down at the coyote tracks and I miss the lightning storm ahead of me, my vigilance has now compromised.
Yeah, it's a big disservice,
right?
Your ability to respond.
Yeah, being aware of what system mode speed you're in, what's happening around you. And I also find a lot of hope that these skills can be taught and trained.
Yeah. I think one of the best exercises for this actual piece is the next time you're feeling at a 1, take a second and close your eyes and do some body checks, like scanning maybe from your head to your toes or toes to your head, and notice, what does a yes, what does safety, what does calm, what does 1 feel like in your body? We all have unique individual cues that tell us that we are safe. And to check in with that and know that in that moment, when you are feeling a 1, your awareness, your alarm system, your security system is as activated as it is when you're a 5. It is taking in billions of bits of information. In that moment, it is telling you, it's giving you cues to say you're safe for a reason. It's based on something. And there's a reason that your alarms aren't going off. But the alarm system's armed. It's on, it's checking, it's seeing. And see what those are, and see if you can help mimic those or remind yourself about those when you find yourself in a 1 appropriate situation, but you're at like a 3 or a 4, and be like, wonder if I could kind of bring my heart rate down, or if I could recreate that kind of smiley, warm feeling that I get when I'm a 1, whatever it is for you. That's like a 1, like, oh, my muscles feel so relaxed. I feel sleepy, maybe. And then the next time you find yourself in a 2, in a 3, 4, 5, don't stop in the middle of a 3, 4, 5 if you're actually in danger, but get yourself somewhere and take a second and check in there and say, what are the things that tell me I'm a 3, 4, 5? Is it sweat, like sweaty hands, or goosebumps, or chaotic thoughts in my head? And begin to listen for what the alerts are in your alarm system, and then begin to check, like, hey, okay, so I had my heart pounding today, and it was just being in an elevator, and I wonder, like, was there anything going on there, or was it maybe like me being paranoid? And I don't mean paranoia in a bad way. We all have paranoias, so I'm not saying you're like a bad person for having fears of, I'm afraid of sharks in swimming pools, so I would never judge anyone for irrational fears. Anyway, but yeah, begin to listen to, like, and notice, what are your physical cues? What are your alerts and alarms in your system? And that can really be helpful. And it can also help lead and guide you into what is going to be appropriate for you when you need to regulate. So if you feel like fidgety in your hands, that might be telling you that if you need to come down from a 5, you might need to flick or shake. That might be what that's telling you to do, So yeah.
For those of you tuning in on and off, in and out, this is Amelia. She teaches empowerment strategies and self-defense. What questions do you have? What comments? What's inciting your brain and igniting thoughts, perspectives? Feel free to tune in, type in the comments. What I was just hearing Amelia say is that it's so important to get to know your vehicle and its tells. When is a vehicle at a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5?
When is your check engine light blinking at you?
Yeah.
What are those warning signs that can give you like a cue that some stress response is coming, or that things are okay and you can pop into cruise control a little bit?
The other thing I was hearing is how important it is to have an active relationship and trust with your human car system, including its natural ability to optimize your safety and well-being.
Yeah.
And how, in my experience, my vigilance doesn't trust my natural safety reinforcement.
Yeah.
And because I'm sitting here checking in, I would say my body feels like it's at a 3. It's revving at a 3.
Yeah.
Like my neck is tight. I have kind of quivery, achy, shaky in my arms.
Okay.
And yet I feel perfectly safe because I'm with this human that I love. This is literally my 25th time doing a YouTube
Old hat.
live, right? And so like discerning, this is arousal of a 3, but it's not fight or flight because there's no objective danger.
Yeah. Well, there's also like the 4 and the 5 that's just, you're on the PCH and, and there's nobody out and you want to pop into 5th gear and you want to like let that engine open up and you're having fun. Like there's a 5 that's like excitement and like, you're skydiving or you're whatever, that's fun and that's different and excitement will feel different in the body, even though maybe the gears are the same, than like fear response. You're right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And comes into how important it is to be able to have enough wizard brain online as opposed to lizard brain to determine context sensitivity, right? Like I'm here at a 3 and I'm excited, but it's not dangerous. If I were to only rely on my internal body cues right now, I'd very quickly go into freak out.
Sure. Yeah. So it's awareness of me. How am I doing? And then what's going on around me? Like what's going on with this person I'm with? Are they behaving in ways that feel safe? Because sometimes we can be looking at somebody who's like, this is somebody I know, I trust. They wouldn't do this. And yet I'm activated, something's up. And we want to be able to trust and listen to that because those are, statistically, we're more likely to be hurt by people we know. So we want to be open to seeing and recognizing threats when they come from places that we're surprised. Or you could be somewhere like, here I am at the Taylor Swift concert and there's a zillion people here and I am having so much fun and I am relaxed and things feel good. And I don't know why, like it shouldn't, but here I am and it feels great. And like to be able to make context of the way you're feeling with, what's going on around you.
Right. Like matching the internal environment with the external environment.
Yeah.
How's the car? How's the environment? Am I mode matching? Is this the right gear for this environment? And then the thing that you do so brilliantly is teach skills how to downshift when you teach the skills that you teach.
Yeah.
The fighting, sure, but more importantly, as you mentioned, the nonverbal skills to defend and empower yourself in these more hidden, subversive, underground dangers, like where there's maybe emotional danger or psychological
like asking
threat.
for a raise at work or confronting someone who's been harassing you or is behaving in ways that are, uncomfortable for you or unsafe. And having to set a boundary, like those things, those are actually some of the hardest things that we do as people. In many ways, we are so equipped to like beat other people up, like to fight. That part could be really easy if we learned how to do that as kids. But it's the like communicating that can feel so foreign and so hard for us. Yeah.
And we're almost set against or behind the 8 ball because our car, my biased experience is that the car will go into those higher gears of 3, 4, 5, and yet I'm better served to be in a 1, 2 lower arousal to be able to communicate effectively around observations, feelings, needs, requests.
Well, and maybe it's not even necessarily the gears, because sometimes 5th is great. Like being in 5th is the appropriate gear to be in if you're moving fast. Maybe it's more about the RPMs. Like how much are you revving? How much are you moving into the red? Because you could be a 5 while you're skydiving and like be having a wonderful time and be able to really handle that gear in that moment and be looking around and seeing like, holy smokes, I'm in like a definite fight or flight moment of like near death possibly. And I'm loving it. I'm like grasping that moment. I'm staying in the right RPMs, versus like you could be in 1st gear and be like just destroying your engine by just, going too fast in that. So, yeah.
So this is why we all need self-driving cars.
Yes. See if anyone is around me. Angry. Just to be aware.
So what Brian said, when I'm in public, I generally quick scan
Mm-hmm.
to see if anyone around me appears off, angry, etc., just to be aware. I have initial thoughts that come up, and I wonder if you have initial thoughts that come up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with, being actively aware. I think that's great. I think it's a great strategy, especially when you move to somewhere new. But you want to think of yourself as like the Jason Bourne of like, I know where the exits are. Cool. Now I can like relax. And I love too that to me, it speaks like very specifically that you spoke to people's behavior and not to the way people look. And I think that's so smart, because we do so often say like, oh, that person is this, they're bad. They're, we can describe them in physical terms, but you're talking about behavior, and behavior is absolutely the way to tell whether you're safe with someone or not. It's how they're behaving. Does it make sense in the context, and how do I feel about that behavior? So I think you're doing a great job, Brian.
There's oftentimes when I teach, I come away with more questions than answers because I just keep discovering more that I don't know, and the nuance of how to think about things. And I think about our human system in the car and all the feedback mechanisms, brain to body, body to brain, and our feedback mechanisms. And between my human system of thinking, feeling, behaving, I just heard you highlight behaving is highly likely to be the most objectively accurate of their state and their intentions.
Yep, totally.
And so if we're scanning, we want to track more the objective behavior as opposed to potentially our narrative around how we feel and think, because that may or may not be as reliable.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, now the physical therapist in me also wanted to add, like, my behavior, my human behavior of scanning. I can do this with a really relaxed, flexible neck, or a vigilant neck that's paranoid and freaked out. And so objectively, as you watch my behavior, that's actually a good indicator of kind of where my RPMs are, perhaps.
Definitely.
Right? Because if
and how good of an aware person are you going to be if you're, pulled in and so tight? You're not necessarily really taking everything in. You're choosing what you're taking in. You're anxiously expecting this is what I should be taking in, probably in that moment. You're looking for something specific.
Right.
But threat doesn't always come to us in ways where we can anticipate it. So we want to be open to like noticing everything so that we can notice the odd things.
That just goes back to the reinforced hell that I have locked myself into with my vigilance and its biases, that it will look for what it's expecting, which is gonna be the worst, and that other shoe to drop repeatedly, smashing me on the head. And then I reinforce that in my body, my thinking, my feeling. And then I disconnect even further from the most true, objective, reliable safety ensuring mechanisms within me.
Yeah. And if we follow anything about manifestations and that kind of stuff, if you're always looking for the worst case scenario, then, you could be manifesting a lot of fear for yourself. Like, is it really living if we're living all the time as if we're about to be assaulted? Which, when I work with, marginalized communities or folks who have a lot of trauma, especially survivors of child sexual abuse, they may be living their lives constantly in anticipation of more abuse. And so it's like, gosh, I might as well being assaulted all the time because my body is behaving in that way. I'm running on this adrenaline. It's causing dis-ease in my body and illness. So what if we were to look around and see like what's the best that could happen, or just be neutrally like open to what is happening and present in the moment? I think we got more comments.
Oh, Nicole has a gorgeous story about being in true danger and how well she handled it. So Nicole, please, like, we acknowledge and celebrate you, and anything you want to share about that would be amazing. Scott Lee's coming in. What's up, my friend? Nicole says, we find what we seek. And I respect that so much, because it is exactly what Nicole was just saying. We find what we seek, but it makes me a little uncomfortable often to say that, because it's like, who's the one seeking? Is my conscious self the one seeking, or is it more my nervous system's automatic default mode network? And if you've been through any kind of hell, trauma, bad stuff, your nervous system, in my biased experience, is going to be revving at a higher, more vigilant state, and you won't trust the lower, like, relaxed muscle body.
I must not be working hard enough to notice, because there's something bad. There's always something bad. Yeah.
And then this is where I, like, break my heart repeatedly, watching people manifest bad things from that bad place and then beat themselves up for something that they haven't even chosen. Their nervous system hasn't learned how to downshift and trust their automatic mechanisms.
And we have to be mindful and cautious not to move into victim blaming place here. I want to clarify, for me at least, like, that I live in this paradoxical world of, like, simultaneously it's never our fault when we're assaulted, and there are things that have been shown to minimize the likelihood of us to be assaulted. And I could do everything right and still something bad could happen to me. So again, that is solely on perpetrators, that responsibility, and systemic issues, larger issues as well. But so, you know, you don't have to do the right thing, the perfect thing. And especially if you have trauma, you might be stuck in that place of manifesting. And so it's reframing, not to say it's my fault, but to say I have power here, in how I'm moving forward, how I am going to look back at myself and acknowledge myself for the things I've survived. You know, can I reframe that thinking to be like, gosh, you know, as a kid, I didn't have any skills. And so I froze up and, you know, didn't protect myself the way I wish that I could have as an adult. It's like, well, let's reframe and say, like, man, even in that moment of knowing you had no options because you were overpowered, you were a child, you still, your brain and your body flooded your system with chemicals to numb you, to brace for pain. You maybe compartmentalized experiences that you forgot until you were older and better able to deal with those things. Like, we are always taking care of ourselves. And if we can recognize, even in that moment, God, I picked a strategy of staying in a relationship that was really unhealthy for me. But for me, that felt safe and that was the best I could do. It's like acknowledging that, you know, and saying I had power in that and I was taking care of myself the best way I could, and honoring that can be really cool too.
It sounds like it's really important to do feedback monitoring on your human system as it's showing up in the environments around you, and feedback monitoring with self-compassion as opposed to self-critical annihilation. Your car is what your car is because of what happened in the past, and you can learn how to drive it differently with more awareness and more nuance and more agency and power and control.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Nicole just commented, there are mountain lions and coyotes out there. Totally. Like, you know, when you think statistically how vulnerable, you know, we are, of like, you know, 1 in 3 women will be, you know, female identifying folks will be assaulted in their lives, and 1 in 6 male identified folks, right? So like statistically bad stuff is going to happen to us. So like, how do we turn it on and off at will? You know, that's a great question. And it can be very hard to do that. So, but I try to remember and be conscious of the messages I'm sending myself. Like, you know, I used to spend a lot of time walking around, you know, going, I got to be looking around, and, you know, I could get grabbed, I could get, you know, pulled into the bushes, whatever. And I try to switch those thoughts around, because you can kind of do a little EMDR while you're walking. That's actually how EMDR was invented, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and be thinking thoughts of like, if something happened, I would do something. I can reliably count on myself that I would do something. If something happened, I would do something. I would know what to do the best thing that I could do in that moment, and I would handle it. And evidence has shown that I have handled myself every other time I've walked down the street. And if we look back at our lives, we can see a lot of proof that we are resilient and strong. Even staying at a 5 our whole lives, oh my God, the amount of resiliency and strength that it takes to shove down trauma and to wake up in the morning and hold down a job. Oh my gosh. I meet people in my class all the time who are like, I'm such a coward. And I'm like, oh my God, you are so amazingly resilient and strong. And I don't want you to be so resiliently amazing and strong at shoving things down. I want you to be amazingly resilient at letting it out, letting that stuff out.
It sounds like so many things are happening here. Number
Yes.
one, you can walk around your world and two things can happen simultaneously while you do EMDR. I soft neck while you do it.
Yeah.
But while you're looking around, you're training your system to downshift from a 5 to a 4, from a 4 to a 3, from a 3 to a 2. And you're building your repertoire and you're building your confidence. And this is, I think, a key piece for those of us that have vigilance and trauma history. You're teaching your vigilant self to trust your indwelling, resourced, resilient self.
Yeah.
By reviewing the credible evidence of your lived experience of all the things you have survived and overcome.
Totally. And if you're walking, that's a great time to like use some of those strategies to, sometimes we think like, oh, I need to calm myself down. So I have to like stop and breathe. And sometimes we can't breathe when we're in 5th gear. Like that is not like, I use reflexercising a lot, but I sometimes can't close my eyes and turn my face away unless I really know that I'm like, am I somewhere safe? And so while you're walking, swing your arms, pretend you're a power walker. Swinging arms can be a place to send those messages. We also had somebody talking about, like your mom ingraining these messages in your head of like, you need to be scared. And it's like, whoo, I'm going to take those messages and I'm going to send them out through my arms or through my fingers, or I can imagine stomping on those images. But sometimes it's about, we got to like let some things out of our body before we can then like regulate. And I think also if we have the opportunity to access some of those messages or trauma or some of that fear or those experiences, and we feel overcome emotionally, like let yourself cry. Also, you can wear sunglasses while you like walk and cry your eyes out. No one would ever even know you were crying. But I find that when I have opportunities to let some of that out, I want to really seize those opportunities if I can.
It sounds like you're really reinforcing I, me, we all have a trustworthy system. There's things we can do with our body to reinforce these natural sort of release valves or braking mechanisms. Like I think about crying is kind of like lube for stuck trauma.
I'm also a sexuality educator, so I like love that analogy.
Like the wetness lubricates, right? That stiff, stuck place.
Yeah.
And the arm swinging, I actually work with a lot of people that have vestibular problems, and I work with a therapy clinic frequently that specializes in vestibular issues. And there's all this rigidity in the neck.
Yeah.
And people walk like this.
Yeah.
And they're constantly getting these exercises to swing their arms while they're walking because you actually neural flossing these nerves that go from your brain stem down to your spinal cord, not your arm. You're flossing your nerves and you're imbibing them with blood and chemicals and healing flow.
And literally lubricating the joints. And
And so then that actually makes us more flexible and resilient to deal with any potential true objective danger that comes.
Totally.
And then the reinforcing and the feedback mechanism of how important it is to celebrate all the times. Hey, I didn't get assaulted today. Hey, I made it on a walk. Hey, I got out of bed. Really celebrating.
Celebrate that. That sounds great. Yeah. And the more we do it, the more those messages will get, ingrained in there. And I think that's so great.
Yeah. Brian's got this gorgeous thing about, I tell my daughters, beware means be aware when they're
Nice.
out in the world. I think it's important. Aware is different than vigilant.
Totally.
Vigilant will keep a system in that third, fourth, fifth
Yeah,
gear,
absolutely.
wind you down, create dis-ease and, uncomfortable manifestations.
Yes. And again, not aware of what other people think we're supposed to be aware of, worried about what we're supposed to be worried about, what other people tell us, but aware to fluctuations and changes in our circumstances and in the behavior of others that can indicate a rise in our risk.
Right.
Yeah.
That objective behavior of others and really weighing heavy on that evidence as opposed to my biased narrative of, well, I think and I felt that you did, like all those things aren't as objectively reliable.
Yeah.
They're valid.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to discern, is that coming from a relaxed state or a more vigilant, scared place?
Well, and then I would add to that too, because I have daughters too, is trust your intuition. So they could be in a situation where I'm being aware, but I can't tell what it is that's making me feel off, but I feel off. And if they keep looking for what it is, see, our intuition doesn't work that way. It doesn't tell us what the thing is. If this building is on fire, my intuition is not going to take the time to go, Amelia, the temperature just raised 10 degrees and you felt it, subconsciously. It's only going to send me the message, run. That's it. It's going to say leave, exit. It's very efficient in that way. Paranoia, prejudice, bias, however, will speak to us long volumes about, we should be worried because so-and-so did this and such. And this looks like that episode from CSI, and the white van, it's a white van, those messages. So teaching your young people to trust their intuition is super important. Even if everybody else is like, we're so excited to go do this thing together and they feel off about it, to be able to say, I feel off about it. And so I'm not going to go, even though it seems fine. And they may not get any evidence later that anything bad happened. But, that's the thing, is when we do listen to our intuition, we don't get rewarded by like evidence that, if you had gotten in that elevator, such and such was going to happen. Right? We just have to reward ourselves of I don't know what I missed, but I missed something that was worth missing.
That's a really key piece to the acknowledge and celebrate the missed opportunities of badness that didn't happen.
Let's see. Then Nicole's laughing about being told to breathe. Yeah, I hate that. It's like, calm down, never calmed anybody down. So we just don't even say that. The arm flinging did amazing things, says Nicole. Oh, good. I'm taught extreme paranoia. Yeah, it's hard to tone that down when we're taught from our parents that, you're so vulnerable. And so we're like, oh, I'm vulnerable. I do need to be hyper vigilant. And it's hard to unlearn that and not pass that on to our young people, or to swing in the opposite direction and be maybe too permissive or, or too much you can do anything. So
I'm really seeing this dimmer switch. It's like a spectrum of there's maybe like a pendulum or a shift of totally vigilant, totally laissez-faire. And then in the middle is somewhere where there's a self regulating mechanism of safety and security in me that can swing this way when I need to and swing that way when I need to. Yeah. And our parents or young experiences or past experiences can adjust the default mode network of our nervous system, which wasn't our fault, and we can calibrate it and adjust it. Yeah. Yeah. And I want to call back to something Willeen, WCD speaker, said earlier about paying attention to your lived experience now and having conversations like this to collect data on your own car, get to know your own vehicle.
And know that you are unique. We do not have shared distinct experiences of what we would choose in that moment. We so often are watching a movie and we're like, why are they doing that? I would do this. We love to reanalyze someone in the newspaper. Well, this happened to them. Well, I would never just to remember that we all in that moment are responding in our lizard brain. It's not our wizard brain when we're dealing with stress or conflict or an emergency. And so like allowing for us to choose what we choose or for people to choose what they choose.
It's so important. It reminds me, somebody told me there's 3 types of business. There's my business, there's your business, and God's business, whatever you determine God to be, the universe.
Or
I
like none of our business. Is
Yeah.
maybe how I would say that. If somebody doesn't resonate with God, it would be like your business, my business, and none of our business. Like somebody else is in charge of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's really gorgeous. Joseph Campbell's got this definition of
Yeah.
God that I love. And it's the name that we call all that we don't understand.
Ooh, yeah.
And I
love
think
that.
those two really work together.
Awesome.
So there's 3 types of business: my business, your business, and nobody's business.
Mhm.
And I like life best when I'm like really feeling in control and in charge and confident of my own business.
Yeah.
Because I will very readily go into a freaking judgmental a-hole about somebody else's business.
Ooh.
I can feel my neck getting tense right now. And like, what a recipe for suffering and disaster in my bias.
Yeah, because you
experience.
can't control that other person's business.
Oh, yeah. And that's such a key with trauma history. Like,
Yeah.
we need a sense of control, and we're trying to control the external world around
But that
us.
might also not be your business, Renee.
Oh, look
None
at
of
me
us are
projecting
business.
my life experience. Okay. I want
Oh,
to
my
talk
goodness.
about what a challenger I experience Amelia to be, and a grounded, centered challenger. And she activates that in me. And I want to invite, again, any comments, thoughts, questions. We're going to go through a few techniques.
Sure.
What to do in the moment. Your gear, your car, it's revving high, 3rd, 4th, 5th gear, and it may not need that.
Yeah.
So just a quick background. When you teach a class, are people in general during fight scenes low energy or high energy?
Oh, they're super high energy because we do simulated, full force fights. Because we believe that trauma really occurs in the body, that empowerment can happen in the body, and that we're a bottom-up therapeutic practice. So we're really like retraining the body. And so even though we're teaching people physical self-defense, that's not really the goal. The goal of that is to create cellular transformation that the brain doesn't even have to believe that we're powerful, but now our body has experienced it. And now all of a sudden, we can bring ourselves down to like a 1 or a 2 or a 3 when we're having conflict with our boss or partner or whatever is going on with us. So when we've got folks in a fight, like our expertise, our student instructors and our lead instructors like me, our job is to trigger adrenaline response and to push people's RPMs up and push them into those high gears. But that might be different for different people. Folks with a ton of trauma, we might have to push them harder because, again, very resilient, can handle tons and tons of adrenaline, and they're activated all the time. And so how can we give just the right push? And then we can work on ways to like pull back, so it just depends. So we play with adrenaline, but we're trying to get people activated out there so that we're teaching their muscle memory, so that we're firing those neurons in the lizard brain, so that they'll remember these skills when they move into red tree.
Right. And then what's new since I took your training is that you push them into that more adrenalized danger state. And now you're giving them skills to walk out of that adrenaline.
Yeah. We realized that we were like having our students, find their own kind of way down, and we would offer maybe some thoughts. But now I'm like, I really want to actually make this like part of what they're doing. So they're on the mat, the fight ends, we blow the whistle. There's a moment where they settle their feet and stand in the ready stance, which is like informing the body. It's the flinch response. It's like, oh, I'm handling whatever it is that's going on. And we have them look, like really look all the way around them. And what they're looking for is like, is safety nearby? Where am I? I forgot where I was. And what's going on here? And then we have them assess whatever the threat was. Is it gone? Is that person unconscious? Is that person fleeing? And then assess themselves. Am I in a place where I can pop behind the wheel of a car and drive off, or run away, or, did I injure or hurt myself? So taking those moments, I do those even, Renee, like I do those probably more often because I don't use any of the physical skills. I haven't had to, other than just one. But like if I'm, let's say, driving in my car and there's a car accident next to me, I may pull over and maybe I help or whatever. But once that's over, I might stop in the parking lot and like actually look, where am I? I'm safe. Okay, I'm good. And then reassess the threat. That's over. There's firefighters here. They're handling it. Stuff's taken care of. I'm good. And then how am I? Whew, I'm pretty adrenalized. In fact, I didn't realize how adrenalized I was because I was in like, doing mode. And now I'm like shaking, because sometimes when we're coming down from that adrenaline, we're shaking, right? And so I should not get in my car. So, and then I might reach out. I might call someone and be like, whoa, this intense experience happened. I need to, do something to calm myself down. Animals in the wild, like if an antelope is chased by a lion, if it gets away, it will shake and shake and shake and shake and shake. And then it'll go, oh, that's over, and move on with its life. And that's why they don't need chiropractors and physical therapists in the wild, because they don't carry around all that trauma that causes chronic pain. It's fascinating. And I love Renee because I love Renee for so many reasons. She's fantastic, obviously. But I reached out to her because I was like, Renee, you understand our work. You understand how when you're stepping off the mat and you're a 5, that it's not time to like breathe, just breathe. So I loved what Renee gave me, which was the cycling of like this, like getting really big.
Can we pause for a second? Because I'm so excited and I want to pause because you just gave me another tool that you use so automatically. This is what happens in my experience with resilient people. We're so freaking awesome that we don't even stop and notice how awesome we are.
Oh, yes.
I want to invite all of you there in YouTube land, watching live or later, to stop whatever you're doing right now and do a pulse check. Notice your body, notice your breath. Wherever it is just fine. If you're breathing, you're winning at life.
Oh, I love that.
Okay, so just notice
as
that.
long as you're breathing.
As long as you're breathing, you have an automatic A+ in my book with 5,000 gold stars. Now let's do this technique. And I love the idea of like, put your hands up and with your eyes softly look around and let your neck follow. This is such a good objective exercise. Where is, if any, the objective physical danger for me right now? With your eyes, let your neck follow, soften your neck. And this is just a really quick way to take a safety second and remind your body that you're safe. Out there in YouTube, notice your body before and after you do that.
Yeah.
That's a huge piece of data collection, feedback monitoring. Is this a skill that could work for me? I could see myself leaving even a YouTube live. Oftentimes it's better now, but I would be so adrenalized from the excitement of doing this. It took me like an hour and an hour and a half to be able to get back to focused work. Seriously.
This would be a great strategy, for doing that.
Yeah. And so I just want to celebrate that strategy that you do already so automatically that I don't do automatically, but I want to add to my repertoire because I can see how that would be a good tool for me to downshift quickly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Where am I? Is the threat gone? Yes.
Yes. All right.
Cool.
Feedback on that from YouTube Live.
Thank you. Oh, good.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Now, let's go back. There's another adrenalized state. I just got off the mat. What else do you have for us?
So I love that Renee was like, let's not move right into like calming down. We might need to cycle through something that's kind of like that shaking. Sometimes shaking can be even more activating. So sometimes shaking doesn't work. So the real most important thing for you to understand is everybody's different. Just like your intuitive cues of I'm in danger or I'm safe are different, your needs are going to be different, and they're going to be different at different times, right? So be flexible, checking in and being like, I want to squeeze my fists. I want to push off of a wall. I need to push. I need to send that energy somewhere. And so Renee gave me this big thing of like, you get really big and you're like sniffing in, really inhaling and like big, big, big. And then, and you're going to have to exhale through your mouth at first, getting to that nasal in and out breathing is the goal, right? But I might need to like exhale and I'm kind of hanging down because I'm imagining putting my head down when I'm super adrenalized right away. I might just pass out. So I might need to come up again and then, to coming down and exhaling. And then eventually you're and what I learned quickly about my students when I was doing these, so I would have them come off the mat and then I would stand there and I would have them regulate, is that not all of them could regulate while I was standing there staring at them like, Renee, let's regulate together.
My tension just went up high.
Some of them were like, I cannot regulate when you are looking at me. Okay, so some people it had to be like, okay, you're going to regulate and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to talk to the rest of the students. Well, you take a moment for yourself. And then other people super needed me there to like recognize like, oh yeah, you're clenching and unclenching your hands. I can see that, you're not seeing that. And so I would bring my hands up and I would do this and then, they would be doing that with me. And then I would, start to open a little wider. I was doing some mirroring of like, how can we then, and I'm modeling some good breathing, right? And then following what they're doing and like, we kind of want to move. And then it was amazing because over the course of this like 20-hour class, my students got to where they were like, they would just come off that and they had their thing they would do. Like they would, swing their arms for a second and then they would like end, with just a nice little validating something. And then they would just like be fine and be great. And it was amazing. And it was amazing for me too, because I I'm like everyone else in that I want to look good, but I'm also really dedicated in my life to like being really vulnerable and being a leader, which means like doing stuff before other people do it, and trudging through the bush, with the machete, making the way, which means I'm going to do stupid stuff sometimes, right? Because I'm committed to, making the mistakes before other people sometimes. So I had them. I usually I would like demo a fight and then I would go right to teaching. And I decided that's not modeling very well. So I would say, okay, I demoed and now I'm going to take my moment to regulate. And I would, in front of everybody, or I would turn around or whatever, I would do the thing that I needed to do. And then I would, bring myself down. And if I needed, I would say, can everybody just take a deep breath with me? Or can everybody, sometimes it was just wiping off the trauma or the, whatever, but using some kind of strategy. And I was like, this is so decadent and this is very selfish. But no, it was like perfectly modeling for everyone else. And my recovery from class, like I usually like no one can be around me for a couple days after I teach because of all the trauma and all the space I'm holding. I'm exhausted. I'm grouchy. I was like much easier to be around. My muscles weren't as sore. I didn't have as much problem sleeping. Like it was amazing taking that time to.
It sounds like you're preaching through your lived experience
yes.
that putting out little fires frequently is much easier than putting out a big fire, right? Big adrenalized weekend class, you need several days to recover. Then when you started doing little mini regulations throughout the training, you didn't need days to recover. Which speaks to the like sensitivity or more so the irritability of your nervous system. If it's going up and staying up, it's going to take longer to come down.
Totally.
Versus if it goes up, you bring it down. It goes up, you bring it down. Like little fires are easier to put out than big fires.
Absolutely.
So
well, and Nicole's very validating about how physical that was and how.
Yeah. And
that was great.
People are loving the physical techniques.
Yeah.
And another thing it sounds like is that the physical techniques, you want to know your body because sometimes doing physical techniques with another person is more effective for downshifting your nervous system, and sometimes it's less effective.
Yeah.
Right? Because the proximity of another human, the eye contact, depending on context, the presence of a human nearby, eye contact can be highly perceived as dangerous or highly perceived as safe. And so another person can really be the lighter fluid to make the big danger fire go up higher, or the like 5-alarm fire that can get it down quick.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you will need different things at different times. And it's about, again, like getting to know you and your body and your needs and what do you need in that moment. And it's going to be different, and to be willing to be flexible, too, about that. Cause like long-term stress can cause things like, during COVID, I really got to like skin picking a lot. And I was like, God, this is just so my anxiety. And I realized that sometimes just flexing my hands out was where that really needed to go. Like that energy needed to move out. And so like taking that feeling of what I was doing, but expanding it, making it bigger, and allowing it to release versus allowing it to kind of fester was super helpful.
Okay, friends, we have the safety second pulse check. We have the cycling, get big and little, which I do have a YouTube short on that I made for Amelia. It's on my channel. And then hand awareness. Notice positions of your hands, movements of your hands.
That can be a good place to start. We have a ton of nerves in our hands. So it can be a place where we can really quickly identify, I want touch or I don't, or I want stillness or I want, connection, or I want movement. Like hands are a great place to start, because sometimes we're like, this is too tender to start with, like, something here. Like I want to move my hips. That might not be as intuitive for you as like, I want to move my hand or my feet.
Yeah. And I'm noticing just, again, the trusting your body's natural impulses and instincts. I am a very physical touch person right now, and I'm solo, and my dog is not the best at giving me my physical touch needs. And so like, how cool is it? Because hands do occupy so much space on the homunculus and the sensory cortex. We can use our hands to give ourselves soothing, calming touch.
Totally.
Right? We can move our hands.
These are made to cover our eyes. I mean, it's like fascinating how much these are kind of just made to be in the jaw, even, or to fit in the neck, or, just find the nooks that like make sense. And some people like, going in the armpits and kind of squeezing there, or one in or one out, something like that. But hands are a good place to start.
I love this. It's kind of a way to gather myself back home again. Like after I've been out and big and about, it's like, oh, I'm back home here. Like I like this feels better to me than this. So play around.
That's why people put their hands in their pockets and they close themselves off sometimes. Like sometimes that can really help you to feel like, oh, I've set a strong boundary. Like I'm a no to any more stimulus right now. Like I'm closing my body off to that. I'm really internally present and checking in there. So,
and again, that feedback monitoring. How does this affect the car? Because this, I feel like I'm solid at a 1, stable, but I could go to 4 right now if I needed to. I stepped out of my vigilant system and more into a relaxed alert system.
Yes. Well, and your good friend Beth Ann Fisher, right? She's been doing some abdominal work with me on my digestive system. She's amazing. Womb Matters. Look her up. She helped me to understand how I naturally hum when I'm stressed. I was like, I'm a hummer. I just like hum when I'm out and I kind of whatever. And she's like, that is such a great strategy. So sometimes sound also can be a really good one to have. Like, I have students who come off and they maybe need to yell some cuss words and some angry things, or, just get that energy out vocally, verbally, just yelling no, saying no, feeling no, and then moving to, that might be a good access to breath too. Cause sometimes the quiet breathing isn't the thing. And Beth Ann talked to me about vooing Voo, which like gets into the digestive system. And so I do a ton of vooing as my physical therapy for her.
Yeah. And I just made up a new technique. I have a
Yeah?
lot of what I'm still doing this, right? Because it feels good, like gathering my energy back
You're
in.
such a self-hugger.
I am. And I'm also I'm making this up in the moment, like badge carrying angry fucking asshole. Because
Same.
right, past
Sometimes.
experiences where my no wasn't honored, my boundary. So while you were humming and vooing, I was going, motherfucker, motherfucker, motherfucker,
I love
motherfucker,
it.
motherfucker, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. And it really like,
Or a growl, like
yeah.
Sorry, Marcus.
Oh, he's friendly.
He's fine.
Yeah.
He knew I wasn't growling at him.
Yes.
But yeah, growling sound, something like that causes some reverberation. It's almost like the shaking, the flicking. It's causing the reverberation in your body.
And then that sigh right there is a beautiful body indicator of we have put the car in park. We're peaceful. We could turn it back on again. We're in fifth gear.
And you want the car to hum.
Yeah.
You want a certain level. You don't want the grindy. And we're getting some validation also that, yes, that sounds activate the vagus nerve. Thank you so much. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read your name.
Slow blinking Nicole. Solo Mija is a lovely visitor that always has lovely things to say.
Thank you for the validation.
Owana was in the tube. She'll watch the rest later. I want to finish with two things. Okay. Number one, audience, your takeaway, your questions, your thoughts. While those are coming in, we have one more fabulous new strategy that you just taught when we've got a Marcus coming in hot.
I'm a 5. See, some sounds cause the 5. Hi, Mark.
Yes, very quickly. Your whole nervous system just went up.
Yes.
Vigilant people you can trust. Your system will turn on when you need it.
When you need it. But I was doing this one in the car this morning. So just taking the ball and just in the middle and exchanging it so that I'm like activating both sides of my brain to remind me if I'm like in one particular area of my brain and only one, I can be like, oh, I have a whole like other half of my brain, or like I have a lot of brain that I can work with. And it was very helpful. I did it while I was stopped at a light. I didn't do it while I was driving, but I was like, the traffic was driving me up the wall. And I happened to have like just like my daughter and I keep fidgets in. And so I had a ball. And so I just grabbed it and I did this. And it was so great.
You know, this is good because it's bringing up more strategies for me too about how we can explore. Again, I trust my body and where it wants to go. Yeah. And it just started sort of going in different directions. And this may or may not be an established skill already, like not brain spotting, but like brain gym, how they do a lot of crossover. And also, so that's a nuance, right? You can kind of explore novelty of movement, freedom of exploring different directions, kind of moving your body.
It's like doing a really nice little improv for yourself. They're just what feels right, what feels safe to like bring yourself back to you. I called it equalizing because we have the ABCDs of boundary setting and action when it comes to self-preservation and self-defense. And so I just added an E that was easy to like equalize, to like bring myself back. And I want you also to remember that like equalizing doesn't stop like just once. Like I have PTSD from medical trauma and I am equalizing over and over again when I get activated by my trauma. And going to therapy is one of the great ways that I equalize by doing physical therapy, all those different things. And so, so your self-defense strategies carry on to how you take care of yourself in the future. So you might have to equalize every day or many times every day or once a month.
And that is not something wrong with you, my friends. That is something right with you as you're dealing with the ever-changing context, landscape of life as you drive your car through the road of your journey.
And the best thing you can do is allow yourself those moments of parasympathetic nervous system so that your brain can get washed and your food can get digested and your body can do what it needs to do to heal and repair, and your
Yeah.
brain and your heart.
Yeah. Because healing happens, my friend. Tissues can recover and trauma can end.
Totally.
It might get reactivated again,
Sure.
but you build skills.
Mhm.
And I'm so thankful for this time together today. We got to build our repertoire
Thank you.
together of how to all contribute to a healthier, happier, green tree world. All right, my friends.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here today. It has been a joy and pleasure. Please leave your comments, your takeaway. What skill do you want to incorporate in your life? When you write it down, it helps you learn it and put it into practice deeper. So we would love to hear from you what you're going to be taking away with you. And I will be fine-tuning and adjusting and preparing for the next YouTube live series that's coming out. So stay tuned.
Oh, exciting.
All right, my
happy
friends.
driving, everyone.
Bye-bye.